Ready to go.
Thank you, everybody. Time is now 7 o'clock. I do have something to read just as we comply with open meeting law in this new at least new normal in a virtual world. So as a preliminary matter, this is Justin McCullen, TMAC Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Let me see here, we got members. So Seth Bauer.
Here.
Vice Chair. All right. Rebecca Tarantino.
Here.
Donna Mullen.
Here.
Suzanne Stein.
Here.
And on the agenda, it says Rebecca twice again on here, which is interesting because it's like
It's really
vote early and often. Yeah, she gets credit for two.
You want to hear from me that often? I can comply. No problem.
That's true. Staff-wise, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Daphne Collins, who's our recording secretary.
Here.
She's there. Bob Wilson.
Here.
Anthony Delgazio.
Here.
And Rayan Hoyland.
Here.
And Lieutenant John McGrath, Needham Police Department.
Here.
Excellent. And all right, and so anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Dylan Atia.
Here.
Excellent, Dylan. Sundip Pradhan.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Peter Rocket.
Here.
Here. And M. Collins was here from before. Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. So good evening. This open meeting of the Traffic Management Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's office suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. This meeting is a webinar and will allow for public comment. For this meeting, the TMAC is convened by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public can join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that some other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording and put into perpetuity on YouTube. Meeting materials. All supporting materials that have been provided for members of this body are available on the town website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We'll be turning to the first item on the agenda momentarily, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker of the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of the members, inviting each to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. And members can either put their physical hand up or use the hand icon on Zoom. For any response, please wait till the chair yields the floor to you. And for items with public comment, I don't see others besides the petitioners, but after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will open the item for public comments by raising of the electronic hand. For those participating by computer, the raised hand option can be found by clicking the participants button at the bottom of the screen. It will bring up options to choose. Select the raised hand. For those participating by mobile device, click More button at the bottom right and select Raise Hand. The chair will call on each raised hand in order received. Please identify yourself by name and address, and you will be afforded up to 3 minutes for any public comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call, and that's just because it's just easier to keep track of, and Daphne has done a fantastic job at that roll call, so I may call on you to run that roll call, Daphne.
All right.
With that being said, we can kind of go to the first item on the agenda. agenda, sorry. But before, I did mention I may need to drop off my 2 children. They're watching a movie. My wife is working, so depending upon their behavior, et cetera. But I know Seth can, who's the vice chair, can certainly come in and make sure that our petitioners are still able to be heard, and the meeting can still go on. So with that being said, let me see here. Anyone for our members, have they gone through the minutes that was circulated from July 15th? Are there any comments, concerns? At this time, no comments or concerns. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as sent out?
I will second.
So Rebecca made the motion, Seth Bauer seconded the motion. So we do have a motion to vote on the floor for the minutes. Daphne, if you could go through the roll
All
call.
right. Anthony Delgazo,
Aye.
Rain Hoyland,
Aye.
Lieutenant McGrath,
Aye.
Justin McCullen.
Aye.
Seth Bauer,
Aye.
Rebecca Tarantino,
Aye.
Donna Mullen,
Aye.
Suzanne Stein.
Aye.
The motion
Excellent.
was approved.
Excellent. Thank you, Daphne. So for other business status report, Bob, do you want to kind of bring us through
There's
the
not, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay, go ahead. Yeah, no,
There's just a couple things, and the major one since the last meeting is the signs on Holland Street, which have been installed, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on in the meeting, but that's the gist of the update for the new update. I gave you an extension one last week and last month, that it was just a little bit this time.
all right.
For the update.
Do any of the members have any comments when they went through the, I'm just trying to pull mine up right now. Were there any comments or concerns with regards to the status report? No? All right. Excellent. So no questions there. All right. So guess we will move to agenda item number 3. Dylan, just to let, as we go through, all of the members of the TMAC have received the information. They have reviewed the information. And so what we do is we like to give each petitioner an opportunity to kind of, make their case, talk about, why they're here and some of the mitigation. We've all kind of read everything, but certainly provide any other information that you have. And then we'll kind of go forward and see if we can come up with some solutions to any of these petitions. So Dylan, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks for having me. Yeah, the issue I wanted to raise to the committee relates to the block of Warren Street. So I live at 166 Warren Street, which is a very small section of Warren Street that sits between Great Plains Ave and Dedham Ave. There's sort of two separate issues that are both related due to sort of the traffic flow on the block. The first is as you approach Needham Center from Dedham Ave, Warren Street is the last right turn you can make before you hit the lights at Needham Center. So I think as a result of that, a lot of car GPS systems send cars down Warren Street and around to avoid that busy intersection, to avoid the light. So as a result, we get a lot of sort of artificial traffic on our block. But what makes it particularly dangerous is the sort of high-speed nature of that turn. So people traveling down Dedham tend to be traveling at a fairly high speed. It's sort of a blind corner. I don't know if you're familiar with the intersection, but there's sort of 5 different streets that come in all at one point. So there's Warren at both ends, there's Harris at sort of an odd angle, and of course Dedham. So unfortunately, the house that's on that corner has a lot of very overgrown shrubbery, and it's really hard to see anything around the corner, along with a sort of non-existent sidewalk. So that intersection has been a potential safety problem on the block since I've lived here. The second issue that sort of relates to it is that the block is already fairly narrow. The street is fairly narrow, And even though parking is allowed on the street only on one side of the street, and actually the opposite side of the oncoming traffic I just described, it still is essentially completely full during business hours, mainly because unlike Warren Street on the other side of Great Plains, we don't have any parking restriction on our block. So I found that virtually everyone who parks on our street are train commuters that either walk to Eames Center or to Junction, because we're sort of equidistant between those two stations. And the block just isn't wide enough for it. So if you follow the block kind of down towards Great Plain, towards the Baptist church that's on the corner there, the block was a little bit widened by essentially knocking out the berm and creating a little bit more space for a car to park. And that has, I think that's probably only about a third of the length of the block is like that. And it helps, but it's still pretty tight. Anytime, you know, any sort of truck, like even a truck as big as like a FedEx truck, I'm not talking like a tractor trailer, travels down the block, an oncoming car is not able to go by. So you sort of have to like pull over onto the grassy area of the sidewalk to let them by. So I had proposed, this was a while ago when I first submitted my query, so I apologize if like my memory is a little hazy, but I had proposed a couple of solutions just because I live here and I observe traffic, a couple of things that would make sense to me at least. The first is I don't think that making the street one-way, one-way traffic is a desirable outcome. It's not for me, and I think it'd probably be more of an inconvenience for anyone who lives on our block. So I think a likely alternative to prevent that sort of high-speed traffic hazard from Dedham would be to have a no right turn sign from Dedham onto Warren. So essentially, any traffic coming from Dedham would need to continue straight onto the light and not be allowed to turn right. Anyone who lives on the block, like myself, could just make a right turn at the light, the previous light on Webster, just go around the block. That's number one. And number two is I'd like the town to consider putting a 2-hour parking limit between the hours of whatever it is, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I forget what the town does to limit commuting traffic in residential streets. But I think that would help us a lot because even pulling out of my driveway is tough sometimes if a car is parked across the street from my driveway exit, just to give you a sense of how much space we're working with here. So that's all I have for the committee tonight. Thanks for giving me an opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Dylan. So I think what has worked in the past, unless there's any objection, hear from the town, kind of either from Bob, Ran, or Tony, to kind of give any any sort of any comment on either what has been done in the past or history of this this petition, just to kind of give some context. So I'll kind of toss it to one of the three, if any of you do have any comment, and then ask the rest of the members if they have any other comments. And it's including Lieutenant. I don't see you. I just see your name.
I'm going to speak here. I'm Bob Wilson. I would like to speak to the parking issue on that section of Warren Street. Dylan, actually on the side opposite where the church is, that has no parking right now, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Also, however, even on the other side, on the church side of the street, from about 70 years ago, there has been a restriction on parking even on that side. There's no sign showing it, but there is a regulation on the books for even that side of the street.
Now, is that a no parking regulation or a
that is a one hour parking restriction that's been on the books for a very long time.
Okay, all right.
Just for informational purposes. But that's my take on the parking. So I don't know.
Just
so you mentioned 2-hour parking limit on that.
I just wanted to understand what you're saying, make sure I understand correctly. So the that does allow parking, so the side closest to the church, the entire length of that block currently has a 1 hour parking restriction?
Yes.
Okay. And have there ever been any questions raised about putting signage up and enforcing that?
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
don't think since I've been around in Needham, I don't think so, but
Okay.
others may be able to talk about that more than me, but.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's 1 hour parking, not 2. I think you were talking about 2 hours.
Sure, thanks.
At this point, is there any comment from any other members of the TMAC?
I have a question.
Rebecca, go ahead.
So how do you know that the traffic is coming from people turning right off of Dedham Ave?
So I shouldn't say it's the only way that cars can come down the block, but it tends to be the most often traveled way. Warren Street is really funny. The way that it, from the Dedham intersection, Warren Street doesn't go straight through. It sort of goes like catty corners. So if you look straight down Warren Street towards Dedham, you're looking at a house, but Warren Street continues on all the way down to High Rock, but it's almost like sort of, it's not aligned. I found that, I mean, I walk my dog every single day. I kind of like, sit there and watch. It's typically during rush hour times. It's not like I've conducted a very official survey, but I tend to find that virtually no cars coming from Warren are going straight through to my end of Warren. And cars that are making a left from Dedham inherently are just traveling at lower speed just because they're making a left. So they're typically yielding to oncoming traffic from Dedham. The sort of the angle of the right turn from Dedham to Warren is not that sharp. So it's pretty easy to take it as a high speed corner, if that makes sense. It's not really a 90-degree turn. So,
but the speed is your primary issue, right?
Yeah, it's the speed. I mean, the volume of traffic, it is what it is. I mean, we live near Needham Center, so we, I think it's expected that we'll see more traffic than otherwise, but it's definitely the speed. Yeah, I mean, I have kids, I walk in a stroller too, and sometimes like cars are zooming by me on that corner at like over 30 miles an hour coming around a corner,
Because I'll be honest, I happen to, so I have to me, that's a cut through to Needham High School. So I also think I don't think your only issue is people turning right on Dedham. So I think that I don't necessarily disagree that speed on that road is an issue, but for people coming across from the other side, from Warren on the other side. So if you come, if you're coming from like School Street, you turn left on Warren and you need to cut across to get to the high school, the way to go is Warren. So I think you're dealing with a lot of high school traffic getting to the high school and coming home from the high school, and you're dealing with teenage drivers as well as adult drivers. So
yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I hadn't thought of that, but I mean, I haven't noticed really any changes in the last 5 or 6 months that the schools have been out. I mean, I did notice a material change in April, May, when pretty much everyone was locked in their houses. But since the economy slowly crept back, June, July, the whole block is parked through all day long, and traffic has kind of picked up again substantially. Yeah, but I hadn't thought of the high school thing, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think it's about to pick up, but at least now you've got a few weeks.
Yeah.
Any other members have a comment or questions to the petitioner?
I understand that there is a plan to reconstruct the corners of Warren Street and Dedham Avenue. Ryan could probably fill you in on that better, but I believe several of those corners at that intersection are proposed to be reconstructed. I believe there's also a plan, so to speak, kind of a conceptual plan from our consultant, our Complete Streets consultant, TEC, to look at potentially condensing the 2 crosswalks into 1 crosswalk. I also think that if speed is a concern, that we put out the traffic tubes to determine just what the speed is before taking any action on this.
So is that a motion, Anthony, to do a speed study?
I'm kind of hoping that Ryan will chime in on the corner reconstruction first, and then
Sure.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Yep. Sure. Ryan? Do we have
muted?
Oh, okay. We can hear you now.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, not see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. It's on safe driving mode for some reason, but I'm at home. So we have a complete street consultant that through an interview process last year that we hired, that his expertise is at looking at traffic calming and complete streets, which is intermodal movement of pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicles. And one of the tasks that we've identified is to look at this whole intersection. Many years ago, an engineering consultant did come up with 2 or 3 conceptuals. However, it didn't get movement on that. That was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And it was going to be a significant capital improvement to realign the street. So it was major reconstruction. And that in public meeting didn't go anywhere. So in the interim, we've asked the consultant to begin to look at all these streets in that area, including on Harris Avenue and crossing Dedham Ave for people to, what kind of light system, what are the radiuses, and what would be the traffic flow of more of a downscale, a smaller scale, to try to make improvements. So that's going to take some time. I don't expect them to be able to look at that until next year, and give us several concepts of what we could do as a package in that whole area. So it's from School Street, Warren, Harris, Dedham. Interesting.
Ryan, I was hoping you could talk about the curbing at the corners. There's a plan that was done to change the curbing at the corners.
Yeah, so that we have a draft corners, which is to greatly that would reduce cars. I believe that would turn, that are on Dedham Ave, as the petitioner spoke, heading to downtown to turn onto it. It would have a tighter and a wider radius, so that pedestrians would feel safer and slow down traffic coming on and off of Warren Street, as well as a different layout at the end of Harris coming on to Dedham Avenue. So those are still conceptuals.
Just a question on that. Is there any, I mean, understanding that it's conceptual, what's the typical time frame for something like that to go from concept to reality?
I would think a couple months. It's the town has to meet, the Department of Public Works would meet with the consultant, make a recommendation, and then talk to Town Hall and see if it requires capital funding to do a full design on it, or if it's something we can fund internally, and if it moves forward. And if it's a small enough number and we can do it inside the budget, it's fairly quick. The contract would be pretty quick. They're already we already have a contract agreement with this consultant. So it's a matter of identifying the funds and then having them complete the design. So if it's a small enough number and it was determined by the director of DPW that it's something we could fund internally, it could be done all in the winter, this winter. If it's a capital, then it's a longer time frame. It has to go get approved, get vetted, and then go through town meeting. So it's about how much it's going to cost and what the design would cost. And I think we could do that. We could find the funding, but I don't want to speak to that without talking to the director and engineering.
Ryan,
Okay.
Great.
Ryan, was there a plan to try to either by paint or paint and cones, try out the corner reconstruction changes?
There is, that was done internally by, I think it was the assistant town engineer or somebody in your department, Tony, that we also have one across town at Webster and South, which was a more defined plan, so what we're gonna do is mark out the street and then apply a cone system so that we can observe the behavior of the travel, and then move forward with a design. Once we observe, we may modify the design a little bit. So that's our next step, and that's at the Warren side too, and Harris is, I don't think Warren and Harris would go in until the springtime. We have a little bit more work to look at and get that approved.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. So with regards, it sounds like there are some initiatives the town is doing, both looking at a shorter term and longer term, Dylan, with regards to some mitigation and or perhaps some longer term redesign, reconstruction, but obviously that's a longer term solution. There currently, as Bob had mentioned, there is a parking restriction already. If there were signs that went up, obviously we'd have to make sure that everyone is aware of this. Is that rather than just, if there's already a restriction on the books, are we just going to put, or is there interest in the town signing that, which is currently already in the books?
Typically, when signs are taken down for whatever reason, and these signs would have been missing for many, many years, or removed for whatever reason there was, it goes back to the neighborhood. Do they want to have a parking restriction on both sides or one side, or what kind of parking restriction? And usually TMAC requests a petition from the neighborhood supporting such a restriction. I'd like to speak to the no right turn from Dedham Avenue onto Warren Street. I believe, first of all, I don't recommend that restriction. I do recommend that the corners be reconstructed. The plan that does exist actually has been mathematically created. So it is a plan for the corner reconstructions. Ryan is absolutely correct in that it has to be approved by the, hello?
No, you're still there. You're still there. You're still transmitting. I think it was somebody else who had went off mic and had a double session.
It does have to be approved by the director before it can be implemented, and it gets coordinated through the various departments of the town, including the police department. At this point, I think I'd like to make a motion to recommend that we have the traffic tubes be put out on Warren Street to establish what the actual 85th percentile speed is.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second for putting speed tubes down? Is this just do a count or a count and speed?
It would be a full count and speed and type.
Count, speed, type. Okay. Yep.
And it would be for a week.
Okay. Do I have a second? Oh,
I second
or
the motion.
questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, Justin, didn't mean to interrupt. Just a question on that. Would that speed test be conducted like at that intersection of Warren Street? Because obviously towards the middle of the block, cars have already slowed down. Really, that intersection is the concern. Like, would the two basically be along the crosswalk of Warren where Dedham meets it? Is that basically how you would conduct it? Or?
It wouldn't be at the crosswalk. It would be about 100 feet down, simply because you won't get accurate information if you put it right at the crosswalk.
Okay,
But we'll put it as close to it as we can.
thank
Great.
you.
So we do have a motion, and I believe it was seconded by Rebecca. Do we we have a motion that's been seconded. Daphne, if we can go through a roll call.
All right. Anthony Delgazo,
Aye.
Rain Hoyland,
Aye.
Lieutenant McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCullen,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Yes.
Rebecca.
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Daphne. So Dylan, that at least we'll start to get the data. And any sort of plan is going to need to have data anyways. We start with that. So that's usually the the first step toward anything. As far as the parking, just from the sake of time, I want to kind of mention this. So if there was appetite to perhaps put signs up on the second side, which we currently have, an old regulation on Warren Street. We'd probably want to have input and a petition going around with each of the residents of Warren on that side, just saying, okay, because we don't want to just slap something up and suddenly, we're putting somebody in a circuit. I know this is kind of a weird situation because we already have it on the books. We're not trying to create a new zone. We're just kind of signing a zone that currently no one knows about or no one knows from being the last 20 years or something. So we're going to kind of go through the same process that we would tell somebody, to establish no parking. So if it is something, Dylan, you want to move forward with, just kind of say exactly along the top of the sheet, say exactly what you need, what you're requesting. Oh, actually, Tony, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's necessary to restrict them to only a choice of a 1-hour parking. They can select whatever type of parking restriction they want.
Okay.
And if it is the 1 hour, then of course we don't need to create a regulation. But if they choose like the 2-hour parking between 9 and 3 or something else,
Yep.
We can still go forward with that as well.
Okay. So Dylan, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. The part I'm not clear on is whether, does the town conduct this petition or would I do it myself?
You would, and this is the way it has worked with everyone else who comes to the committee. You would go around knocking on doors to or email, I know, essentially saying on the top of the sheet, we are asking for whatever it is you think is appropriate, 2 hour, 1 hour, between 3 and 4, whatever it may be, and just have, name, address, yes, we the undersigned support this, so that we see whether, 80 to 90% of the street feels yes, then it makes things a lot easier when we start putting, the DPW starts putting signs up. So we know that there isn't this intrinsic, desire, and it has happened before. There have been people that have said, no, we don't want this. So this kind of just lets us know that we're going to kind of green light toward signage, and that kind of, you can come back to us and we can get that through. If it's petitioned and if it's a 1 hour and we already have a restriction, it's just a matter of the normal process to put it up. If we needed to entertain a new regulation, it can be still done fairly quickly.
Thank you. One last question. Is the committee looking for some majority number? Because there's only about 10 or 12 homes on the block. Do you just need 3 or 4 people to kind of say, yes, we want it, or what's?
I don't think there's a magic number. I know in the past we've done a majority, we've asked. Maybe a plurality would like to, if there's 10 people, maybe 6, 7, that'll be nice. The more the merrier in that sort of circumstances. Tony.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we've always asked them to contact all of the residents on the stretch of road on both sides, and then some will say, well, some will sign it and some will not. So we'll get an idea of who is in favor and who is not.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So is any other comments or concerns on this item? Excellent. So we'll do the speed and type, and we'll have that in the status report when that's been done as well. So you'll be able to look that up on the website, Dylan. All right. If there's nothing else, let me see. Sundip Pradhan?
Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dylan. Oh, and there you are. All right, you're on my sheet there. So this is with regards to crosswalk signage on Riverside Street, an intersection of Highland Ave. The floor is yours,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, so I live in Riverside Street, and used to be like a couple of families there and with the kids that goes to the public school. But now, given there's additional homes, like I think there's 10 new condominiums being built. So in the street, there's significantly more kids. I think 60% of them have kids. And what I've seen is like from my last year, my son going to the Elliott School, the bus ride, like in the morning, and when the bus comes back, and the bus kind of stops on the Highland Ave for the 19 Riverside Street intersection, and that intersection is it's pretty difficult to cross, given the both-way direction and the busy traffic on the Highland Ave to cross to the Riverside Street, and also in the Riverside Street, given that it's the only street that there's no U-turn on the Highland Ave, so people do come on our streets and to take the turns or so, passing through our street and going to the Highland Terrace Street to come out. So there, I think the crosswalk and some of the signage to help out, like a slow speed, I think would help for the kids in the block.
Okay. At this point, I wanted to open this up for comments or questions from, I guess, first maybe some of the town, the reps, and then from members.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir? Yes, I recognize.
I would like to mention to the committee that Mass DOT, the State Highway Department, has already created design changes for the length of Highland Avenue from Webster Street all the way to Charles River, which includes the Riverside intersection.
Okay.
Those plans are complete. They are available at the engineering office. However, during COVID-19, what we've been doing is anybody who would like to see, say, the proposed construction in their area, simply send a email to the engineering division. You can do it through the town's website, or you can contact Tom Sarno. That would be TSARNO at needhamma.gov, and simply request that you get an email of the section. In this case, it would be at the intersection of Riverside and Highland, and they will send it to you so that you can actually see what the state is proposing. Also, I would like to inform the TMAC that that work is actually supposed to start in September, this month.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time coming, but they do have a contractor, and they just recently suggested a neighborhood meeting. The date escapes me right now, but it would be on their website as to where, and where and when, what date and where it's located, or if they're going to do it as a online meeting, that would be most convenient. Will take place if anybody wants to observe a presentation. And I would suggest that Mr. Pradhan avail himself of that so that he can see what it is that they're proposing, because they are reconstructing that intersection.
All right. Does that, first of all, Seth, you actually had your hand up first, and then I'll go to Suzanne.
Tony actually answered my question, which is there a plan for implementation? And it sounds like there is. So, you know, as long as it's within a reasonable amount of time, that sounds good to me.
Sure, Suzanne?
Yeah, can you just clarify, so the kids coming on or off the bus are crossing Highland Ave?
Yeah, the bus only drops it across when the bus in the return, I think it only drops it on the Highland Ave, and they have to cross that Highland Ave to come to River Street. While going into the school in the morning, I think they will stop on this side, but when going, I think coming back, this is what I think is a trouble for us.
I would just also, I'm looking at the map right now. Riverside loops around to Highview, and then you can come back out on Highland Terrace. Can the
Yeah.
bus? I would recommend sending an email to Shane Marchand at the Transportation Department and say
They only do that in the morning, but not on the evening when they
I
drop
would
it off.
recommend a change in the bus route and say, I have a first grader crossing Highland Ave with no crosswalk. He may not be aware of that. And can you reroute it? It would only add like 30 seconds onto the route for the safety purposes. He's great on email. So
Okay.
I would shoot him an email tonight. You'll get a response by the morning. It's worth a try because that's
I have asked the bus driver, but they said it's not on the route, so I'll try to send the email as well.
Go to Shane Marchand. He's the director.
Okay.
He's actually come to TMAC before and petitioned for
Yes.
kids for safer things. You know, so he's slammed with stuff, but when you bring something to his attention, he's pretty responsive.
Okay.
And if it's something the bus can do, it sounds like it does it on one way, so it should be able to do it on the other way. He can change the route. The bus driver learns the route, and that's just safe for your child.
Okay, thank you. That's a good recommendation. We'll try that.
Thank you, Suzanne. Rebecca, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, in principle, there are two things. One is the bus driver can never change it, so you always have to go to the leadership. And then if you have trouble there, another resource to try is always the school principal too, because they can help when it specifically relates to your school. If you're not getting what you want, but he should be helpful. The other thing I wanted to ask is that so one of the things we've talked about a lot here too is that you can't add a crosswalk if it's not safe for pedestrians to cross. So if a child is, even if just because you put in a crosswalk doesn't mean that people will stop. So that's just something that this committee has talked a lot about, so just for your perspective, that's one of the concerns. So it's something that you can address through the bus routes. And the other question I had is there a stop sign at the end of, is there a stop sign at the end of
there's no stop sign on the Highland Ave. On the Highland and Riverside crossing, since Highland is the main road, it doesn't have any stop signs. It's only on the Riverside.
So Riverside does have one.
Yeah.
So is there a crosswalk to cross Riverside, or there's
no? There's no crosswalk.
Got it. Okay. And so, but your primary concern is just crossing Highland for the kids
Yes.
getting off the bus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Highland, I think I thought the reason that I put this petition was they were doing a construction of the Highland, I mean, at least the Riverside roads. I thought they would put some cross signings or the crosswalk there, but it seems like that was not done. So that's why I was put the petition here.
Yeah, my other question is, do you have a concern about the speed of traffic on Riverside, or that's not your concern?
It is a concern. That's the second part of the concern I had, is the Riverside Street, because there are there's a Cookies by Design, like there's a business that the cars comes and park, and also because Highland Ave, it doesn't have any U-turn, they come into our roads for the quick turners and go about their way. So if they go to our Riverside and go past to the Highland Terrace, or come from Highland Terrace and come to the Riverside. So that does have a speed, which is been bigger problem, I think, before, but right now I think there's very limited, because I think most of them are right now it's not much of traffic. But it was a concern before the April time, I would say.
Okay, so given that, I was just going to say, if so, we could assess the speed if it's worthwhile. But if so, we always talk about how those slow signs, or the speed, if you put a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, that's not the state signs, it's just a suggestion. I do think that people are more likely to say, oh, I should slow down here, or a slow children sign or something. I mean, I would think that would be worthwhile if that's a problem on a small street that's in that area specifically.
Yes, I think on the Highland, I think on the terrace, Highland Terrace, I can see somebody had put their own personal sign to slow, and I do see people slowing down. But in our side, I think we don't have any signs, so that could really help as well.
So I just wanted to recognize Tony. Wanted to mention something. You had your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do recall the state's reconstruction design plan at that intersection, and they are proposing a crosswalk across the mouth of Riverside. So it goes from one side of Riverside to the other side of Riverside. They are proposing that, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're also installing a stop sign.
Mr. Chairman, it's Lieutenant McGrath.
Lieutenant McGrath, I recognize.
If people want to get a good concept of it, if you go to the n2innovationsdistrict.com website, they have the whole slideshow presentation mapped out, and there's great visuals as to what that entire area is going to look like. So it's if the petitioner is interested in checking it out immediately, it shows all these design changes, and it's like I said, as Tony pointed out, it's in coming. They've already put in the gas main, and so that was just another alternative to check it out. That's all.
Sure. Thank you, Lieutenant. Any other comment or concern or motion on this? So Sundip, I think. Oh, go ahead.
To me, like, this is basically going to be addressed, reasonably well, and I think Suzanne's recommendation regarding the bus route is a good one, and if it continues to be a problem, then I would suggest you come back to us. But it sounds like there's nothing that we need to do as a committee to help you resolve this problem.
I think you just stole my thunder, Mr. Bauer. But yeah, so that's obviously check out the information and the maps on either online, or you can make an appointment down at the DPW office to take a look at the actual plans. So if there's any, go ahead,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, it's Ron. I couldn't see the to raise the hand on my phone. I've met with a couple of residents of Highland Terrace and Riverside after we paved the street. Several mentioned that trucks and other vehicles are taking those roadways, and then at the very end there's a private way with massive speed bumps, and it's a very narrow intersection. What to do. I asked them in the future they'll come to TMAC. In the interim, in our discussion, they mentioned that the bus and other large trucks are having a hard time making the turn onto the private way and then exiting that neighborhood because cars are parked at the playground, and requested at some point if we could put up to assist no parking here at a corner about 25 feet back, so that if a bus or a large truck does go down there, they can go down the private way and exit, because when the car's parked, they have to do a multi-turn type of thing to it's too tight to make the radius.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if the petitioner has observed that, and would, in his petition, he does address no parking to the intersection or no parking to the corner, if that's something that we should consider.
I have not seen any issue with the parking near the park, but I do have seen an issue with there is I think specific like Cookies by Design, which they have a lot. They don't have any parking, so they do park at that Highland near the Riverside, near the Highland intersection. That's been I think there from the very beginning, and there's no parking sign. I think we can park on both sides of the street, at least on the Riverside Street. But I think the trucks and those things I've noticed only during the construction, which has been all completed in our street at least. I mean, those houses are already built, so I haven't seen that recently, but I have seen that last year.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm actually just looking, Rain, on the maps right now. I don't see where you even put a fix. We had to put poles, and that would be like in the middle of a parking lot. But it's something that, you know, maybe after at least someone has viewed the plans, or at least that this project has been completed, then we can see how we can supplement. Is that a better approach? I think is let the Highland Ave project go through, and then figure out a way to, if the issues are still there, we can, you know, come on back and we can figure out ways through either elimination of parking, you know, to make things easier, or slow children, et cetera. We can certainly look to see what we can do to supplement the work that's being done by Mass DOT. That sound okay?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brownhand. And so unless anyone else has the objective, item number 5, Peter Rocket.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Peter Rocket of 1649 Great Plain Ave. I'd like to thank you and the committee members for your time for allowing me to address you about the intersection of Mason Road as you approach Great Plain Ave. And as I wrote up, there have been a couple, at least, accidents in recent years. And there was a young lady who was T-boned perpendicular as she was driving down Great Plain Ave eastbound. Somebody exiting Mason Road hit her and pushed her car completely across Great Plain Ave into the fence on Standish Road. And it required at least 5 police, fire, and emergency vehicles. And she was taken on a spine board to the hospital. And I believe that it was entirely preventable if there were a presence of a stop sign at, excuse me, at Mason Road as you approach Great Plain Ave. There is, by way of reference, a stop sign across the intersection on Standish as you approach Great Plain Ave. So this would just be mirroring what already exists on Standish. And I don't know if this is permissible, but I took a 30-second video on my phone yesterday of the intersection. In case anybody's not familiar with it, would I be allowed to hold it up to the camera to show you? Anthony? Oh, excuse me.
You
Mr.
can
Chairman.
use this, if the chair allows it, there's the screen share feature.
I understand that in Zoom, however, it's on my phone. I didn't upload it to my computer.
Sure. That you can hold it up.
Okay. So what I'm going to show you is I'm standing on Mason, and you'll see it approaching. So I'm standing on Mason, looking at Great Plain Ave. You can see the stop sign across the way on Standish. There's a lot of busy traffic, and I think people who are unfamiliar with Mason, who may be visiting the area, would assume that they could have just gone straight across the intersection, not knowing that's a very busy street of Great Plain Ave. So anyway, that's it.
Okay.
You know, and the road curves at that intersection too. So you have sort of a complicated line of sight of people entering the road as well. So that's all I wanted to say. And I just think for the matter of putting up a stop sign, some of these accidents could have been preventable.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Rocket. And I do recognize Tony Delgazzo.
Mr. Chairman, this is one of the instances where we do not need to do a traffic study because it is the intersection of a local street with a collector or an arterial, such as the case at this intersection. I would like to make a motion that a stop sign be added to the end of Mason Road at the intersection of Great Plain Avenue.
So we have a motion to add a stop sign. Seth seconds it. All right, and we have a third and a fourth. So Daphne, we can. We have a motion on the floor. Daphne, if you could run the roll call, please.
Anthony Delgado.
Aye.
Mr. Hoyland.
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Mr. McCullen.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino.
Aye.
Ms. Mullen.
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye. And I'm also just
Motion.
wondering how long it will take before it gets put in.
The motion passes.
Sorry.
Thank you, Daphne. There was a comment, Suzanne. Tony or Bob or Ryan, do we know? Or Tony, go ahead. I recognize.
It does require a regulation from the Board of Selectmen. So it would go to the next convenient Board of Selectmen meeting. In the meantime, the Highway Division could order a stop sign if they don't have one in stock, or a post or whatever is needed, so that when the regulation is signed, it can be installed. The other component of this is a ad in the local paper, in this case, the Needham Times, which has to advertise the regulation for 1 week before the sign can be erected.
That's my estimation. It could be like a month or a month and a half or so.
Okay.
Till installation.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Any other comments or concerns? Mr. Rocket, does that seem to satisfy?
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair and the committee. I did want to mention, as my wife and I have walked out to Olin along Great Plain Ave, I did take note that I think Standish across the street, the other intersection with a stop sign. And I don't know what the cost of a stop sign is, but it seems like if all those ladder streets had one, it could also be a prevention of potential future accidents as well. So just something for consideration for the future, but I greatly appreciate your vote and consideration tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Rocket.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, last item on the agenda is signage on Holland and Manning. This came to us before we did actually vote. I think signs were actually installed that Bob had talked about in the beginning. And looks like there is a, this was a last minute addition that I approved to change with regards to location of one of the signs. So Mr. Collins and is there, or, oh, there you are.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes, thanks. Thank you to the committee for your approval, and also to the Department of Public Works for erecting those signs. The neighbors are happy. They're pleased that there's a safety measure, the two signs on Holland Street. At the time I prepared the plan, I had indicated a location 70 feet off the corner of Manning and Holland. But I did not take into account the fact that the adjacent property owners, Yasu and Ken Keys, have a driveway basketball court that's popular in the neighborhood. And when that driveway basketball court is being used, they park their cars on Holland Street. The sign where it's currently located makes it inconvenient for them to be parking the cars. And we discussed this, and they would like, if it's possible, and to have that sign moved eastward toward Manning, approximately 32 feet.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, recognize, Rain.
Yeah, I have the map. Is it on the 32 foot for the adjustment? Is it take the 70, move it 32, or 32 feet from Manning?
No, it would subtract the 32 from the 70, which would leave it 38 feet off of Manning.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Delgazio.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to know if the resident that lives there is aware of the new location and has agreed to it?
Yes. Attached to the documents I submitted to Ms. Witham was an affirmation agreeing to that, and that should be.
That was
That should be-
Yasu and Ken Keys? Is that the?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So recently scans, Mr. Collins, for next meeting. Yeah, so Tony, I don't know if you've seen it, but it does look like they're these two individuals. I haven't authenticated whether they live there or not, but yes, we do have something that says that they do affirm and request relocating a sign eastward per the amended plan.
You do.
Mr. Wilson. Oh,
real quick.
Sure.
Mine's quick. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
at the location where the sign will be placed right now, physically out in the field, there is a red cone, little red cone.
An orange cone that's anchored to the ground.
Right. Is that where the sign will be located?
That is the location, yes, that we're talking about.
Okay, so it'll be easy to determine in the field where the sign will go.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Tony.
Mr. Chairman, I was just trying to establish that the neighbor does agree with this revised location for the record.
Okay. But and noted that we did have the documentation that they do, in there that they do agree to the plan as presented to the TMAC for the relocation of the sign. And there was 2 individuals signed. We can certainly check if in fact those are the individuals, But does that for the record, does that work for your question?
Yes, I presume that they agreed to the previous location when the petition was submitted. So there was an oversight, is what I'm gathering.
Yeah, the oversiight's on my part. I did not have a specific discussion with them. There was 70 feet written in, and the 70 feet is fine on the Webster and Holland Street location, but I did not have a specific, discussion with them about that. And it wasn't until the sign was in that they realized what the situation was. So really the oversight was on my part.
Any other comments or concerns?
Mr. Chair, a question.
Yes.
At the new location, cars that are on Manning that take a left onto Holland, from an engineering standpoint, probably to town engineer or to Bob, do they feel that at a shorter distance that vehicles turning left from Manning would see the sign? Is it because the purpose is to try to slow cars down that are turning onto Holland? From a visual perspective at the radius?
Mr. Delegazio.
Mr. Chairman, it's not intended to slow the traffic down. It's intended to establish a parking restriction. And yes, even at 32 feet, the people will be able to see the sign at the near the corner.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, concerns, or is there a motion?
Is this something we need to move to do, or can
Yeah,
the
it's just
council agree to that it makes sense? And
this is a current installation. Mr. Delegazio.
Mr. Chairman, we don't need to actually make a motion because we have already established the no parking or the parking restriction area. This is just a kind of
refinement or realignment.
So it's not required, but if the committee wants to do it, that's fine. They can make a recommendation if they like.
well, in that case, I move that we move the sign as indicated by Mr. Collins and agreed to by our town officials.
I second the motion.
All right. Ms. Collins, would you mind running the, I think this is going to be the second to last roll call for this evening.
All right, Mr. Del Caso.
Aye.
Mr. Hoyland,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCollum,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Problem, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Appreciate your patience.
So at this point, unless there's anything else, the time is now 8:06 p.m. and I would be love to entertain a motion to adjourn unless anyone else has any comments, concerns at this time. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Actually, you know, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Oh, excellent. And Daphne, if you could run us through the last roll call of the evening for the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Delgazo. Aye. Mr. Hoyland,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCollum,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Thank you very much, Daphne. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. I would love to, you know, not have this. I want to go back in person. But anyways.
I don't.
Second that.
I'll vote for that too.
Second it.
I have a question though.
Sure.
Is it possible, can we expedite the motioning and approving process? Like, do we have to, can we raise our hands? Do we have to go through that every time we vote on something? That seems to take an awfully long time.
So you probably definitely have a, yeah, it's okay.
This is the process now that the process is to take roll call. It should be in person as well, but now that we're on Zoom, there is now a protocol for all boards and commissions, and they go through that protocol. Some boards are smaller, they're just 3 members, but I've seen, if you look at town meeting, they have to go through this protocol of voting. If you could suggest a quicker way for me to do roll call, I'd be happy to, but
I think it's fine. Thank you.
Robert's rules.
It just means we don't have we just don't have as many, keep the agenda items down, and that keeps the.
Yeah, and it's just also to keep all the commissions and boards and commissions standard now that everything is televised and broadcast. So
Sure.
this came out of the town manager's and it's part of the chair's protocol reading that he does, and that's true with all the chairs as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. Is now September, so October, are we meeting, or because I know town meeting is next month, but is that, I don't know, do we have I know that's on a Sunday, so I don't think that would affect us. So I think.
The next TMAC meeting is for the 14th.
14th, okay.
All right. So we'll
All
see
right.
you on the 14th.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.